Welcome, creatives. I am so excited to be creating again in Kaleidoscope 2022. My name is Christa Forrest. I am a full-time mixed media artist, also specializing in acrylic and oil portrait painting. And I'm excited to be introducing this amazing lesson for you. I'm a true believer in incorporating feeling and story into your creative process. And one way I do that is through other creators and allowing other creators to inspire me. And in this lesson, my inspired person is the amazing, amazing Maya Angelou. She had the most amazing way with words and expressing story in her poetry. And I'm always, every time I hear or read one of her poems, it just instills a feeling in me that I just can't explain. And the only way to explain it is to visually utilize it in my creative pieces. So in this lesson, we're going to be using poetry or story to inspire us throughout our creative practice and lesson. So I chose Maya Angelou's poem, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. This poem speaks to me. It brings feelings in me of freedom and letting go. And we may all interpret poetry differently. We may all translate it and define it differently. And that's the great thing about it. So in this lesson, I'll show you right here, we're going to be working in the monochromatic color scheme. I find working in one color and using the values meaning the lightness and darkness of a color, it's a great way to learn and understand contrast and learn and understand where things go. When I say that, the lights, the darks, and the midtones. This is a great tool when you're just starting out, or if you have a new color you want to understand more, or if you really want to understand contrast and really understand value. So we're going to be working in black, and then white helps us get lighter and create the values of black. And we're also going to be working some collage and just kind of working, continuously reading the poem over and over again and allowing it to define our story and allowing us to translate that poem visually on a canvas. So I'm really excited. I've got a few creative training wheels in there. So if you're uncomfortable with drawing faces, don't worry. Don't worry, I've got you, and the guidance and support will be there in the lesson. So I'm excited to teach this. I'm excited to see what you create. So let's grab our supplies. Come meet me in the Creative Souls art space, and let's go create something amazing. All right, so let's get started. So I always find the blank canvas to be intimidating. So I love to activate my canvas. Activating my canvas by intuitive flow, or what I call free writing. And since I'm using Maya Angelou in her poem, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, I wanted to find that inspiration. Sometimes when I write stuff down, it really starts speaking to me and feelings start to emerge. So I'm going to take some time here to copy this poem onto my canvas. Now I'm using a 9x12 canvas, just a canvas panel. You can use watercolor paper, whatever you have, or your sketchbook as well. Using a Stabilo all pencil, I'm just copying down the poem. And I find that this really helps me pull out that inspiration. Now, I'm not worried about making spelling errors. I'm just working quickly here and just quickly getting a good feeling of the poem that I'm incorporating into my visual story here. Now, I invite you to find your own poem or story that feels and speaks to you in this lesson and use it as the foundation to this creative practice and process that and journey that we're going to be taking here. All right, so now we're going to be incorporating play into our process. I have a lot of fun creative toys here. I've got some stencils, I've got my gesso, I've got some rolling things, sponge, washi tape, bunch of brushes, and we're going to be focusing on the monochromatic color scheme. So let's first start playing, and what I did is added some white gesso to my surface, and I'm just smudging. That Stabilo all pencil loves to activate with water and paint, so it's a great way to smudge and just get that feeling out. And I picked up a brush here and I'm just moving stuff around, feeling, letting the poem guide me in this process. I'm not looking for pretty. I'm not looking for things that make sense at this moment. I'm just allowing things to happen in an intuitive way. I'm playing, I'm moving, I'm dancing, I'm letting the foundation of the poem inspire me. And believe me, Maya Angelou brings on feelings. Even when she speaks, her way of telling a story is so moving and just thought-provoking and just instills feeling in me. So I'm expressing myself here. So I picked up some fun washi tape and I'm just adding texture. I'm going with the feeling. I'm going with what this poem is making me feel right now. So I love incorporating collage in my work, and it's a great way to intuitively add texture and build up your story. So here I've found just a couple of magazines, and I go through this ritual, this process, where I quickly thumb through the pages. I read the poem first, and then I quickly go through the pages, and then I rip out things that are speaking to me, words, visuals, anything. I don't spend a lot of time here. I do it really quickly to allow the feeling to guide me. So I'm just quickly going through the magazine, looking for words, looking for visual stories that will help me express my story on my canvas, using my poem as my inspiration. Now, don't analyze this too. I'm not telling you to sit for hours through tons of magazine. Pick one or two magazines and just quickly, whatever speaks to you right then and there, rip it out. Doesn't have to make sense, doesn't have to mean anything. It's just a great process. And will these words, will this texture show up in the end result? You know what? I'm not really sure. And that's not my goal. I'm building up from my initial foundation, my poem, and continuously allowing it to move me and guide me throughout this process. Now I'm just gonna, the paint on the surface is wet, so I'm just gonna using the paint as my glue, the gesso on there. And I'll add more layers as we move along. But using paper towel to smudge away, and I'm just kind of going in there quickly and building up my foundation. You can continue to play with the gesso or start incorporating your color. I have black and white. Now the white is going to help me lighten the black, but I just added some white acrylic paint in there to play, to get a feeling of the paint that I'm using, and just continuing to build up that creative confidence, that feeling of being comfortable in my space right now. All right, so I'm still playing. I'm going to find more inspiration by using some stencils. Now, I love stencils. I collect as many as I possibly can. These are from Stencil Girl products. I'm using the white gesso and using that sponge that I have there. And this is kind of like a organic, kind of branch-like stencil. I felt like it was speaking to me in this kind of story of freedom and birds. I don't know. I also have a bird stencil that I'm going to play with as well. And I'm just kind of going over using the sponge to add texture. And let's carefully remove it. And oh, wow, this is amazing. Really, look at that. Look at the texture. Look what's happening. This is what happens when you play. And sometimes I don't know what the end result's going to be, but the playing is so much fun. And I encourage you to play. I encourage you to find whatever you have in your studio and just see what happens. Take away that fear and just do it and just see. Look at what happened here. This is awesome and amazing. All right, so I'm ready to add my face to my story here. And I found this photo reference that's speaking to me. And this expression is speaking to me in this story that I'm visually trying to tell using Maya Angelou's poem as my inspiration. Now you see here I'm tracing. I took some graphite tracing paper and I am tracing the image onto my surface here. This is a great creative training wheel. And if you are just starting out and you want to explore drawing portraits or painting portraits, this is a great way to learn, to experience and get there. And it doesn't have to, portrait painting and drawing does not have to be frustrating. It can be freeing and fun. Utilize these creative training wheels to help you, and you will grow from there. So here's my image traced. I just kind of use the Stabilo All pencil to retrace my lines, and I'm loving it, loving what's happening here. So the next step is to add color. So my focus here is to mix 3 values. Now we're only using black, and then the white is there as the supportive actor. It will help me lighten and create the values of black. Now I'm going to start here with a dark, and then I'm going to need a midtone, which is going to be my mixture of black and white. And then I have my light, which is going to be the white. Now I can adjust values in between. I can make my midtone a little lighter by adding more white. I can make my midtone a little darker by adding more black. I can play in between the black straight out of the tube and the white out of the tube. Now, I'm starting here. If you notice, I have a photo in the corner here. Now, when you're looking at it, it is in what I call a posterized view. It allows you to see the values in simplified shapes. It's kind of like color by numbers. And I'm looking at my photo reference and seeing those darks. If you see them there, they're a lot easier to see in this photo. I'm going in with the black paint and I'm adding my darks. Now I'm going in and adding my midtones. I've lightened that dark by adding white. And I'm looking at my photo reference and adding that lighter value of the black to the areas or the shapes that I see in my posterized view photo reference. So using this way of visualizing from the photo reference, the posterized view, it's another creative training wheel, a helpful tool in understanding where things go and understanding how to create that contrast and where the lights, the darks, and the midtones go. Now I've created a lighter value, adding a little bit more white and going in and following the roadmap that this posterized view is giving me and adding that to those shape areas. So this is a great way to navigate and translate what you're seeing from a photo reference onto the canvas. Now, I like using an app on my iPhone. It's called Poster Shine. There's other apps out there that you can use. That's the one I find the easiest. And it is an amazing way, especially for beginners, to get a good understanding of value. Now, you notice here, I've gone in with just straight white and I'm incorporating my lights again using my photo reference, the posterized view, looking at the light shapes and adding them to my portrait here. And in the end, I get a good, rough, loose first layer. I'm not worried about blending, and I'm not worried about blending in any part of this lesson, because if I get the values right, and if I put them in the right places, it will kind of naturally look sort of blended, and you can take it as far as you want. I'm doing some more playing here. I picked up that bird stencil and just using my sponge, I'm just kind of quickly just adding those stencil shapes onto my surface. You know, I had to add some type of bird story. And this is amazing. I love what's happening. This is working for me. I'm going to let this first layer dry, and then I'm going to return with another layer. Again, using my photo reference, the posterized view, to guide me. This is my roadmap. This is what's helping me know where to put stuff. The lights, the darks, the midtones. Light being white, dark being the black, and the midtone being a mixture of black and white. And then adjusting in between, making that gray darker by adding more black and lighter by adding more white. And I'm just going in starting over and adding a new layer, making adjustments as I need to. I'm going to play around, adding another layer, and then think about the hair. I figured this sponge is amazing, so I'm going to add a hair shape at this point. Now, I'm not stuck on making my portrait look exactly like the photo reference. I'm going with what I'm feeling and what this poem is making me feel. The photo reference is just my guide. It's helping me navigate. It's helping me translate. But I'm going to have fun. I'm going to let go. I'm not going to get caught up in copying a photo. I'm going to get caught up in my feeling and how this inspirational poem by Maya Angelou is making me feel and translating that onto my canvas. So I quickly blocked in a hair shape. And again, I'm going back, adding more layers, reestablishing the darks, reestablishing the lights, and kind of adjusting my midtone in between. And the adjustments in midtone will kind of give the impression of something blended. So don't get caught up in blending and having this smooth surface. Really get caught up in the values and putting them where they need to go. That's really important. That when you step back to a painting, if you've got those values right, the painting will speak. It will translate properly. As I continue to navigate and add additional layers, working through the photo reference, my posterized view, and translating that onto my canvas, it makes it a lot easier, right?
when you only have to focus on one color and making it lighter with white. That's why I feel when you're just starting out or you're new to exploring portrait work, practice and create studies using one color and lightening with white. It makes it easier. It helps you start understanding how the face and values and contrast and shape and feeling in the portrait works. You don't have to worry about mixing all of these colors. It's a great way to get started and practice. It's a great starting tool to get a good understanding and building creative confidence and starting to feel comfortable with incorporating portraits into your practice. Now, I'm pretty happy with where this is going. I've added a few more layers, reestablishing my darks, reestablishing my lights, and adjusting my midtones. I've picked up a smaller brush just to get into the small details. I will tell you, you should definitely make sure you step back and observe from time to time. Sometimes things start getting kind of wonky and you need to step back to be able to see it. So always take a break, step back and observe, analyze, return to your photo reference, contrast and compare to make sure it's going in the direction that you are feeling good about. So I'm loving where this is going. I'm just adding a few little kind of curls in the hair and just establishing a beautiful hair shape. That sponge, that was the first time me actually using that sponge for hair texture, and it was awesome. I thought this came out amazing. So I'm just taking a brush, adding a few more layers in the hair using black, maybe kind of adjusting with a little bit of a lighter grayish color to add depth and texture in the hair. And stepping back to observe, to see where I want to take the story. Now, this area right here, the birds kind of got mushed into the hair, and I feel like it just got lost. So I'm experimenting here. I took some white, or the white gesso, and I'm reapplying the stencil there. It's okay. What I'm looking for is a crown or headpiece incorporating the birds. And I just feel like it's getting lost. I'm just going to outline with the white paint and then maybe add contrast with the black next to it. And we'll see where this takes me. I'm okay with making mistakes here. I'm okay with things not working because I'm going to step back and observe, and I'm going to talk to myself. I know that sounds crazy, to find a solution. So here's my solution. I took a separate piece of paper, got my stencil, my sponge, going to add a little bit more paint, black paint to my palette, and I'm going to add the stencil to this separate piece of paper. It's just a regular piece of copy paper, nothing too fancy. And I think what I'm going to do is cut it out and collage it into the hair area. I picked up a Posca paint pen, just kind of darkening lines, and I think this will work. This is how you learn to solve problems. Not everything is going to work in your practice. And when you start a piece, you're going to find you're going to get stalled. So it's a great advantage to step back, observe, find out what is kind of bothering you at that moment, and find solutions to help you. And the more you do this, the better you get at it. So I figured if it's not going to work on the surface, why don't I just collage it on? So that's what I'm doing here. And look at these cute little birds. I'm going to grab some matte gel medium to collage this in the hair area. I like using the matte gel medium. You can also use just regular matte medium. I like the gel texture of it. So I'm a little leaning toward the matte gel medium, but use whatever you have. And I'm just going to collaging that on there. And I like it. I still need to make a few adjustments, but I think this was a good solution. So I'm just going in, making sure it's nicely collaged. And then I'm going to pick up some black to go in between so that those collage bird shapes pop out. And then we'll see, we'll step back, we'll observe, we'll analyze, and we'll see what else I want to add to this story.
So it's a good idea to return to your poem at this point and reread it. Read it out loud and see if this is telling the story, if this is giving you the right amount of inspiration to move forward. Are you still inspired? Is it moving you? Is it moving in the right direction? So I'm going to continue to play. And I found this really cool washi tape. You can use decorative paper, you can use old books, whatever you have to collage. I'm using washi tape because it's amazing. And I'm just using the washi tape to create her neckline, her clothing. And it's just a great way to add texture, more mixed media, collage. Use whatever you have, but I've got this cool washi tape. It's a great way to add clothing to your piece here. And this looks amazing. The washi tape has a slight hint of color, which I'm enjoying the monochromatic feeling of the black with the lightening of white, but I'm feeling that I just need just a tiny touch of color. So I'm loving how the collage element is just giving me a little bit of color in there. I picked up a Posca paint pen to add just a few little details. And I'm thinking, because I have that little bit of color in the bodice area, I need to put it in her bird crown. So I just pulled out, ripped out a piece from the magazine I was using. I found some green, similar type of color that the washi tape is giving me. And I'm going to use that to build a crown. Again, you can just use shapes and color. The collage doesn't have to be physical things. Right here, I'm just cutting out petal shapes and then cutting out some of those green stem shapes just to give me a good balance in my composition here. And again, I'm going to use my matte gel medium to collage this into my floral bird crown that's telling my story using Maya Angelou's poem, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So this is coming out amazing. I'm going to go ahead and collage this onto the head area, and then again, step back and observe and evaluate and see where this is taking me and where I want to go. I am loving the story that this is telling me. I'm loving how this poem is inspiring me and moving me to tell this visual story. I picked up a white gel pen just to add a few little line work in the bodice area over that washi tape, and just adding a few little kind of bright highlights to the face area. And I can also pick up my Posca paint pen to add any outlining that can emphasize areas and just kind of get in that detail. It's a lot easier than using the paint in the brush. And I'm just finishing here. I'm in that finishing stage, doing line work, doodling, making marks that help me establish my visual story here. And here I am doing some line work, adding shape to those petals that I collaged into her crown. And I'm loving how the birds came out. I'm happy that I made and created that solution to the problem I was having. And I outlined her bodice area, and I'm loving it. I'm also picking up my Stabilo pencil if I need to reestablish darks. I can go back into my black, my gray, my midtone, and my lights to kind of further reestablish if I lost areas, if things got wonky. This is where I'm making adjustments. And I will continue to kind of step back, observe at this moment in time to see, is this telling my story? Have I told my story? Am I expressing, how this poem has made me feel? Have I done that? Now, I will tell you, the viewer doesn't really have to understand it. This is for you. And when this is you expressing how you feel after you've experienced an amazing poem like Maya Angelou. And it doesn't have to make sense to the viewer. It has to make sense to you. It has to open up that feeling that you're trying to portray. And when you can do that, the viewer will find a connection. They may translate it different. They may see it differently, but they're experiencing your feeling through this inspiration, if that all makes sense. So I'm just adding a few finishing touches, just kind of adjusting, stepping back, seeing what needs emphasis, what doesn't, and just kind of in that finishing zone and kind of making dots. I love making dots using that back end of the brush and just kind of making some dots, just making those feel-good marks. It's a lot of fun. Now, do I want to incorporate a piece of the poem into this composition? I haven't decided yet, but you don't have to. If you want to, you can. And remember in the beginning when I said all of these building blocks, these foundation builders, the collage with the magazine, my stencil, my initial writing of the poem. Remember when I said, does it need to continue to be visual in the end result? It doesn't. If it wants to be seen, it will remain to be seen. But you don't have to incorporate words. Some people really get kind of anxiety about writing. Their handwriting's not neat. You don't have to. If you're telling your visual story, then allow the visual to tell the story. But I've decided I've read through the poem numerous times throughout this process, and I just picked the one of just a piece of the poem that just kind of spoke to me. It just moved me, and I'm just going to write it using my Posca paint pen onto my composition. Now, again, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It just has to instill feeling in you. You have to feel it, and that's what's most important. Don't worry about what other people are going to think. Don't worry if they're not going to understand this. This doesn't make sense. It just has to make sense to you. The viewer will feel it if you put your heart and soul into this piece and just allow the creativity, the passion of another inspired person to move you and guide you through the process. So I absolutely love the journey we took today. I really enjoyed playing. I enjoyed making mistakes. I enjoyed solving problems. I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed allowing Maya Angelou to move me and inspire me. So I can't wait to see what you create. Thank you so much for painting with me, and I will see you back here in the Creative Souls Art Space.